The grand halls of the imperial palace on Telluria echoed with whispers as Princess Zora walked by. At 6 feet tall, she was unusually small for her species, lacking the impressive 8-foot stature of most Tellurians. Her crest, a symbol of royal power, was notably underdeveloped, and her scales shimmered in softer blues rather than the fierce metallic tones prized by her people. "There goes the disappointment," muttered one court official to another, not bothering to lower his voice. They knew the princess could hear them. They wanted her to hear. Zara kept her head high despite the familiar sting of their words. 22 years of such treatment had hardened her exterior, though the pain never truly lessened. She continued walking toward the throne room where her parents awaited. The summons had come unexpectedly this morning, and her stomach tightened with anxiety. The massive doors to the throne room swung open. Inside, Emperor Vox and Empress Nera sat on crystalline thrones that towered over the chamber. Their crests stood fully extended, a display of dominance that wasn't necessary, but was entirely typical. "Daughter," her father acknowledged without warmth, "we have decided your purpose." Zara bowed, as custom required. "I am eager to serve the Empire, father." The Emperor's laugh was short and harsh. "Are you? How refreshing. To date, you have served primarily as a reminder of genetic weakness in our bloodline." The Empress shot her mate a look, not of disagreement, but of strategic caution. "What your father means, Zora, is that we have found a role that may suit your particular qualities." Zara kept her face carefully blank. "I am honored. The diplomatic corps has arranged cultural exchange missions to our allied worlds," her mother continued. "Your royal siblings will represent us on Arcturus, Benari, and the Centauri systems." Zara waited for her assignment, already guessing it would be less prestigious. "You," her father said, "will go to Earth." The princess blinked in surprise. Earth was not considered important in galactic politics. The humans had achieved space travel only 60 years ago and were still finding their place among the established species. "Earth, father." "Yes, the humans are physically small, emotionally volatile, and politically immature, much like yourself. Perhaps you will find common ground." His crest flared slightly in amusement at his own joke. The Empress added, "The assignment will last 6 months. You will learn their customs, explain ours, and sign basic trade agreements that have already been negotiated. Even you should be able to handle this without creating an incident." Zara understood the reality behind the diplomatic language. She was being sent away, out of sight and mind, to a planet considered too unimportant to matter. It was exile dressed as duty. "When do I leave?" she asked quietly. 3 days. A minimal security detail and support staff will accompany you. We can't spare more resources for this mission." Her father waved his hand dismissively. "You are dismissed." Zara bowed again and backed out of the throne room, following protocol perfectly. Only when the doors closed behind her did she allow her shoulders to slump. A royal guard approached. "Are you well, princess?" She recognized him as Captain Drax, one of the few who treated her with respect rather than barely disguised contempt. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just preparing for a journey." "To where, if I may ask?" "Earth. Apparently, I'm to be our ambassador to the humans." Drax's expression remained neutral, but his eyes showed sympathy. "I see. Then I shall volunteer to lead your security detail." Zara felt a small spark of gratitude. At least one person would be on her side. "Thank you, Captain." As she walked back to her chambers, Zara's mind raced. Earth, a primitive world full of emotionally unpredictable beings, a place where no one knew her as the disappointment, the burden, the mistake. Perhaps, she thought with rare hope, this assignment wasn't punishment after all. Perhaps it was freedom. The diplomatic shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere with a gentle rumble. Princess Zora sat stiffly in her royal transport chair, watching the blue planet grow larger through the viewscreen. Unlike her siblings, who would arrive on allied worlds with massive fleets to display Tellurian might, her ship was small and practical. "We will land in 5 minutes, Your Highness," announced the pilot. Captain Drax stood at attention nearby. The humans have prepared a welcome ceremony. Nothing elaborate by our standards, but I'm told they consider it an honor. Zara nodded. She had spent the 3-week journey studying Earth's customs and languages. Their concept of honor seemed different from Tellurian definitions, which centered on battle prowess and physical dominance. "Remember," she said, "we are guests here. We will follow their customs when possible." This was not standard Tellurian diplomatic procedure. Typically, her people expected others to adapt to them. But Zara had little interest in continuing traditions that had only brought her pain. The shuttle touched down smoothly on a landing pad in Nevada, a desert region that reminded Zara somewhat of Telluria's southern plains. Through the viewscreen, she could see a small gathering of humans waiting. "They're so small," noted one of her attendants with obvious disdain. "Yet they have achieved space travel in merely 3,000 years, Zara replied. "Perhaps size isn't everything." The attendant looked surprised at her defense of the humans, but said nothing more. The shuttle doors opened, revealing Earth's bright sunlight. Captain Drax exited first, followed by 2 guards. Their massive frames and metallic armor made them look like giants next to the waiting humans. Zara took a deep breath and followed. The desert heat hit her immediately. It was pleasant on her scales, warmer than the artificially cooled temperature of the shuttle. She took in the landscape, mountains in the distance, clear blue sky overhead, and the modest spaceport buildings nearby. Nothing like the grand crystal spires of home, but there was a rugged beauty to it. A human stepped forward from the greeting party. He was tall by human standards, but still a foot shorter than Zara. He had dark hair, kind eyes, and a warm smile that seemed genuine. "Princess Zara of Telluria," he said, pronouncing her name perfectly. "I'm Peter Callahan, your designated liaison during your stay on Earth." He performed a respectful bow that mimicked Tellurian customs surprisingly well. "Welcome to our world." Zara was taken aback. Most species didn't bother learning Tellurian customs, expecting her people to simply impose their ways. She returned the greeting with a slight nod, more acknowledgement than most outsiders received. "Your pronunciation is excellent," she said. Peter smiled. "I've been studying your language and customs for months. I hope to make your stay here comfortable." A woman stepped forward next. "I'm Director Susan Garcia of the Global Diplomatic Office. We're honored by your visit, Princess Zara." The formalities continued as introductions were made. Zara noticed the humans seemed nervous but eager. There was none of the fearful deference she usually encountered, nor the barely disguised resentment common among species who felt threatened by Tellurians. "We've prepared accommodations according to the specifications your government sent," Peter explained as they walked toward a waiting vehicle. "The embassy building has been retrofitted with higher ceilings, temperature controls for your comfort, and security measures your team approved." "That is considerate," Zara said, finding herself slightly uncomfortable with being treated with such genuine respect. As they approached the vehicle, a sleek black hover transport, Zara noticed humans watching from a distance, held back by security barriers. Many held up devices to take images. Some waved enthusiastically. "Are they always so excitable?" she asked Peter. He chuckled. "You're the first Tellurian royal to visit Earth. You're basically a celebrity here." A celebrity. The concept was strange to her. On Telluria, royals were feared and respected, not celebrated like entertainment figures. "Many people have been looking forward to your arrival for weeks," Peter explained. "Not everyone understands intergalactic politics, but everyone loves a princess." For the first time in her life, Zara was viewed not as a disappointment, but as someone special simply for being herself. The feeling was as alien to her as this strange blue planet. 1 week into her stay on Earth, Princess Zara stood in the middle of a crowded museum, towering over the humans around her. The National Air and Space Museum was filled with what the humans considered impressive technological achievements. To Zara, they seemed like children's toys. "And this is the original Apollo 11 command module," Peter explained enthusiastically, pointing to a small, primitive capsule behind glass. The first vehicle that carried humans to another world. Zara looked at the tiny metal cone with obvious disappointment. This took you to your moon. Yes, in 1969. It was revolutionary for its time. We had interstellar travel before your people discovered electricity, she replied. Peter's smile dimmed slightly, but he maintained his positive tone. That's what makes cultural exchange so valuable. We each have different histories and paths of development. Captain Drax, standing several paces behind them, rolled his eyes. Zara caught the gesture and felt a momentary twinge of shame. She was behaving exactly as her parents would, dismissive and arrogant. Tell me, she said, making an effort, what made this achievement significant to your people? Peter's face lit up at her question. It represented humanity reaching beyond our world for the first time. The astronauts risked their lives in this tiny capsule with less computing power than a modern kitchen appliance. When he put it that way, Zara could see something admirable in the crude vessel. These humans had ventured into space with almost nothing protecting them. There was courage in that. Your species takes many risks, she observed. It's kind of our thing, Peter replied with a smile. As they continued through the museum, Zara noticed a small human child staring up at her with wide eyes. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old, with curly red hair and freckles across her face. You're blue, the child said loudly. Kelly, the child's mother, looked mortified. I'm so sorry, Your Highness. Before the woman could pull her daughter away, Zara knelt down, bringing herself closer to the child's height. It was not a position of dignity for a Tellurian royal, but something about the child's honest curiosity appealed to her. Yes, I am blue, she confirmed. All my people have scales in different shades of blue. They're pretty, the child said, reaching out a hand before her mother gently stopped her. We don't touch people without permission, remember, the mother said. Zara surprised herself by saying, she may touch my hand if she wishes. Our scales do not harm human skin. The little girl carefully placed her tiny palm against Zara's much larger hand. Her eyes widened at the sensation. It feels like a snake but warmer, she exclaimed. Peter watched the interaction with surprise. The princess had been formal and distant during all official functions, yet here she was, breaking protocol to connect with a human child. As they moved on, Peter said quietly, that was very kind of you. The child was merely curious, not disrespectful, Zara replied. On Telluria, children would never approach royalty so directly. They are taught to fear us from birth. And you prefer Earth's approach. Zara considered this. I find it refreshing to be seen as interesting rather than intimidating. Later that evening, a formal dinner was held at the embassy. Earth officials gathered to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and diplomatic matters. The food served was a mix of Earth cuisine and Tellurian-compatible nutrients. When served a plate containing what Peter had called sushi, Zara stared at the small pieces with suspicion. These fish are uncooked, she noted. Yes, it's a delicacy. The fish is specially prepared to be safe for consumption. We check that all ingredients are compatible with Tellurian biology. Zara hesitated. On Telluria, accepting food prepared by another species would be seen as a sign of weakness, but she was tired of the constant struggle to maintain Tellurian superiority. She carefully picked up a piece with her fingers, ignoring the utensils provided, and placed it in her mouth. The flavors were complex: the raw fish, the slightly sweet rice, the sharp wasabi. Nothing like the protein paste and nutrient solutions her people typically consumed. This is good, she admitted, surprise evident in her voice. Peter smiled. Sometimes the best discoveries come when we're willing to try something new. Zara looked around at the humans gathered at the table, talking and laughing with her staff. Perhaps this assignment wasn't going to be the punishment her parents had intended after all. 3 weeks into her Earth visit, Princess Zora's schedule included a tour of Yellowstone National Park. Peter had explained it was one of Earth's natural wonders, with geysers, hot springs, and wildlife unlike anywhere else on the planet. The volcanic activity beneath the surface creates features similar to those on Tellurian thermal plains, Peter explained as their transport flew over the vast landscape. I thought you might find it familiar. Zora gazed out the window, secretly impressed but unwilling to show it. The colors of the hot springs, vibrant blues, oranges, and greens, were indeed reminiscent of home. When they landed, a small crowd of tourists had gathered, kept at a distance by security personnel. Most were simply curious, taking pictures and waving. But as Zara and her entourage walked toward the first viewing area, Captain Drax suddenly tensed. "Something's wrong," he muttered, moving closer to the princess. Before anyone could react, a man broke through the security line, rushing toward them. He held a sign written in both English and crude Tellurian script. "Aliens go home." The human security team moved to intercept him, but Drax was faster. In one fluid motion, the captain grabbed the man by the throat and lifted him off the ground. The protester's feet dangled helplessly as he gasped for air. "Release him immediately," Peter shouted, stepping forward. Drax ignored him. This human threatened the princess. By Tellurian law, the punishment is death. The crowd erupted in screams. Security officers drew weapons, creating a standoff. "There is no threat," Peter insisted, looking directly at Zora. "This is just a protester. Harming him would violate Earth law and create a diplomatic disaster." Zara stood frozen. On Telluria, this response would be normal, expected even. Any perceived threat to royalty was met with immediate and fatal force. But she could see the horror on the faces of the humans around them. "Captain Drax," she said finally, her voice steady. "Put the human down." Drax turned to her, his expression shocked. "Princess, this is a matter of security protocol. I am giving you a direct order. Release him now." Reluctantly, Drax lowered the man to the ground. The protester fell to his knees, gasping and clutching his throat. Zora approached the man, towering over his kneeling form. The crowd watched in tense silence. Even Peter seemed unsure what she would do. "You disapprove of my presence on your world," she stated. The man looked up at her, fear mixing with defiance in his eyes. "Your kind thinks you're better than us, looking down on humans like we're insects." Zora considered his words. How similar they sounded to how she had been treated her entire life. Looked down upon, considered lesser. "I understand feeling insignificant in the eyes of others," she said quietly. "It is unpleasant." The man's expression shifted to confusion. Zara turned to the security team. "This human requires medical attention. Provide it." Then to Drax. "We will discuss Tellurian protocol later." As medical personnel attended to the protester, Peter guided Zora away from the crowd. "Thank you for handling that situation," he said. "It could have turned out very differently." "On Telluria, it would have," she replied. "That man would be dead, and no one would question it. And you think that would be right?" Zora had never considered this question before. Force and dominance were simply the Tellurian way. "I think," she said slowly, "that there is little honor in killing someone weaker than yourself who poses no real threat." Peter nodded. "That's a very human perspective." "Is it? Perhaps my people could learn something from yours after all." Later that evening, Drax confronted her in her private quarters at the embassy. "Princess, your actions today undermined our authority. The other guards are confused. Your parents would never have shown such weakness." "My parents sent me here because they believe I am weak," Zara replied. "Yet today, I prevented an interplanetary incident and protected our mission. Tell me, Captain, which approach shows true strength, mindless violence, or strategic restraint?" Drax had no answer. For the first time, Zara wondered if what her parents saw as her greatest flaws might actually be strengths They were too limited to recognize. The embassy gardens offered Princess Zora a rare moment of solitude. Earth's moon hung full in the night sky, casting silver light across the carefully tended plants. Some were native Earth species, others were imports from Telluria that had been found compatible with Earth's environment. Zara sat on a bench designed for her larger frame, lost in thought. The incident at Yellowstone had disturbed her more than she cared to admit. Not because of the protester. Such dissent would never be tolerated on Telluria, but because of her own reaction. She had chosen mercy. She had chosen restraint. She had chosen differently than any other Tellurian royal would have. "Am I truly weak?" she whispered to herself. "I don't think strength means what your people think it means," came a voice from nearby. Zara turned to see Peter standing at the garden entrance. He carried 2 steaming cups. "I apologize for interrupting," he said. "I thought you might like some tea." "How long were you standing there?" "Just arrived," he assured her. "May I join you?" She nodded, and he sat beside her, offering one of the cups. She accepted it carefully, mindful of her greater strength. "This is chamomile," he explained. "Humans often drink it to relax." Zara sniffed the steam rising from the cup. The scent was pleasant, floral and earthy. She took a cautious sip. "It's good," she admitted. "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the moonlight play across the garden. "The protester today," Peter finally said. "His name is Greg Wilson. He lost his brother in the Singapore incident 5 years ago." Zara frowned. "I don't know of this incident." A Tellurian merchant vessel had a navigation malfunction and crashed in a populated area. 27 humans died. The Tellurian crew survived because of their natural armor and greater strength. "That is unfortunate, but accidents happen in space travel." "Yes, but afterward, the Tellurian captain refused to apologize. He said, and I quote, 'Human fragility is not our concern.'" Zara winced. The words were typical of her people, but hearing them through human ears made them sound needlessly cruel. "Greg doesn't hate you personally," Peter continued. "He hates what you represent." "I understand hatred based on what someone represents," Zara said quietly. "My whole life, I've represented failure to my family." Peter looked surprised at her candor. "Why would they think that?" Zara gestured to herself. "I am small for my species. My crest is underdeveloped. My scales lack proper metallic luster. By Tellurian standards, I am defective. But you're the princess. I am the 3rd child. My older siblings are perfect specimens of our species. I am the embarrassment, sent to Earth because this assignment was deemed unimportant." Peter seemed genuinely shocked. I don't know what to say." "There is nothing to say. It is simply the truth." "No," Peter said firmly. "It's their perspective, not the truth. From a human perspective, you're extraordinarily capable. You speak our languages perfectly. You've shown diplomacy and restraint. You even prevented what could have been a deadly incident today." Zara stared into her tea. On Telluria, these would not be considered accomplishments. Then maybe Telluria's values need reconsidering. Peter's voice was gentle but firm. "In Earth's history, we had cultures that valued only physical strength and dominance. They typically didn't last or evolve. The civilizations that thrived were those that valued cooperation, innovation, and yes, restraint." "You think Tellurians are primitive?" Zara asked, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. "Not technologically," Peter clarified, "but perhaps socially. It seems your society values only one kind of strength, while dismissing others equally important." Zara considered his words. No one had ever spoken to her this way, suggesting that perhaps the problem wasn't her, but Tellurian values themselves. "What if you're right?" she asked softly. "What does that mean for me?" Peter smiled. "It means you might be exactly what your people need, not despite your differences, but because of them." For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zara felt something unexpected: hope. Princess Zara stood before the magnificent painting at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, completely absorbed. The artwork depicted a human battle scene from centuries ago, soldiers on horseback charging across a field. What fascinated her wasn't the violence, but the small details. A flower growing amid the chaos, a mother shielding her child, a soldier helping a fallen enemy. The artist wanted to show that even in our darkest moments, humanity finds ways to express compassion. Peter explained, standing beside her. Zara had been on Earth for 3 months now. What had begun as diplomatic exile had transformed into something unexpected. A journey of discovery. On Telluria, our art glorifies the victor, she said. The defeated are shown as weak, deserving their fate. There is no nuance. And what do you prefer? Peter asked. Zara considered the question carefully. I find I appreciate complexity. The recognition that strength and weakness exist simultaneously, often within the same being. Peter smiled. You've changed since you arrived. Have I? Zara turned to look at him, genuinely curious. When you first landed, you barely looked at our art or tasted our food. You tolerated our customs rather than embraced them. Zara couldn't deny it. I was taught that engagement with lesser species showed weakness. And now I question what weakness truly means. She gestured to the painting. These humans show mercy amid battle. On Telluria, that would be condemned as weakness. Yet it requires greater control, greater discipline than simply killing. They wandered through the gallery, past hundreds of years of human artistic expression. Zara found herself drawn to works that explored complexity, light and shadow, joy and sorrow, strength and vulnerability. Next week is the Interplanetary Summit, Peter reminded her as they left the museum. Representatives from 7 worlds will attend. Your siblings will be there. Zara felt a familiar knot of anxiety. Her brother Vorks and sister Nixara would arrive with all the pomp and ceremony she had been denied. They would tower over the humans, intimidate the other species, and no doubt mock her primitive posting. I am not looking forward to it, she admitted. Because of your siblings. She nodded. They will expect me to be unchanged. The disappointment they can ridicule. They will not understand what I have learned here. Peter stopped walking and turned to face her. And what have you learned? The question caught her off guard. She looked around at the busy New York street. Humans of all sizes, colors, and types moving together in organized chaos. They accomplished so much despite their physical limitations, their short lives, their fragile bodies. I have learned that there are many forms of strength, she said slowly. The strength to build rather than destroy. The strength to listen rather than dominate. The strength to change rather than remain rigid. Peter's eyes showed pride. That's a powerful realization. But my people won't see it that way. They will call it corruption, weak human thinking infecting my mind. Then help them see differently, Peter suggested. You are still a princess of Telluria. Your voice carries weight. Zara laughed bitterly. My voice has never carried weight at home. Maybe that's because you were using it to echo what everyone else said, Peter replied. Now you have something new to say. That evening, alone in her embassy quarters, Zara accessed the secure communication channel to Telluria. She had been sending regular reports to her parents. Dry, formal accounts of diplomatic activities. Tonight, she would send something different. She began recording, speaking in the formal royal Tellurian dialect. Honored father, esteemed mother, I write not only as your daughter and representative, but as a future leader of our people. My time on Earth has revealed a truth we have long ignored. There are forms of strength beyond physical dominance, forms that may serve our empire better in the coming age of interstellar cooperation. As she continued speaking, Zara felt a strange lightness. For the first time, she was not trying to be the daughter they wanted. She was becoming the leader she believed she could be. The day of Princess Zora's departure arrived with a mixture of rain and sunshine, what humans called mixed blessings. It seemed fitting for the occasion. 6 months had passed since her arrival on Earth. The diplomatic mission that was meant to be her punishment had become her transformation. Now, standing on the same landing pad where she had first set foot on this planet, Zara found herself reluctant to leave. Peter stood beside her, watching as Tellurian crew members loaded the last supplies onto the shuttle. "Your brother and sister seemed less than pleased at the summit," he remarked. Zara nodded, remembering the interplanetary summit 2 weeks earlier. Her siblings had arrived with their usual displays of Tellurian superiority, towering over delegates, speaking loudly, interrupting others. But for the first time, Zara had not tried to imitate them. Instead, she had listened to the smaller species, acknowledged their concerns, and offered compromises. When her brother Orcs had attempted to intimidate the Proximan ambassador, Zara had intervened. "Perhaps," she had said calmly, "we might consider that intimidation is not diplomacy, brother." The room had fallen silent. No Tellurian royal had ever publicly disagreed with another, especially not the smaller, supposedly weaker princess challenging her impressive brother. "Earth has made you soft," Vorks had sneered. "No," Zara had replied. "Earth has made me see." Now, as her departure approached, Zara turned to Peter. "My parents will not be pleased with my reports. Because you've suggested reforms in Tellurian diplomatic approach. Because I've suggested that domination is not the only path to power. They will see it as human corruption of my thinking." Peter smiled. "And what do you see it as?" "Evolution," Zara said simply. "The ability to adapt is true strength. Those who cannot adapt become extinct," Peter finished. "A lesson from our natural history." Captain Drax approached, interrupting their conversation. "Princess, we are ready for departure." Once, Drax had been her harshest critic among the guards. Now, after months on Earth, something had changed in him too. He had seen how humans responded to Zara's different approach, not with fear, but with genuine respect. "Thank you, Captain. I'll be there shortly." Drax nodded and walked back to the shuttle. "He's different," Peter observed. "We all are," Zara replied. "Even those who resist change cannot help but be affected by it." The rain had stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the desert landscape. In the distance, mountains rose against the blue sky, so different from the crystal spires of Telluria, yet beautiful in their own way. "I have something for you," Peter said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Zara took it carefully, mindful of her strength. Inside was a simple necklace with a pendant, half blue crystal, half earth stone, fused together. "A reminder," Peter explained, "that different worlds can come together and create something new." Zara was not accustomed to receiving gifts. On Telluria, royals took. They did not receive. Yet this small token touched her deeply. "Thank you," she said, placing it around her neck. "I will keep it always." "What will you do when you return home?" Peter asked. "Begin the work that needs to be done," Zara replied. "It won't be easy. Centuries of tradition don't change overnight. But now I see that what my parents considered my greatest weaknesses may actually be my greatest strengths. The ability to see beyond dominance, to connect rather than conquer." Zara nodded. "My kind have always believed that our physical might made us superior. But what if our true potential lies in learning from others, not simply ruling them?" The shuttle engines began to hum, signaling the final preparations for departure. "You should come to Telluria someday," Zara said. "When I have made some progress, you might find it interesting." Peter smiled. "I'd like that." They did not embrace. Tellurian customs didn't include physical affection, and some habits remained. But as Zara walked toward the shuttle, she felt a connection to this human that transcended physical contact. Inside the shuttle, Zara took her seat and looked out the viewport. Earth grew smaller as they ascended, a beautiful blue marble against the darkness of space. The princess who had arrived as a burden was returning as a visionary. The journey would not be easy. Change never was. But for the first time in her life, Princess Zara of Telluria was not merely accepting her fate. She was creating it.